One of the biggest questions that I get from founders is around valuation. Founders are trying to raise money for their companies and they've got to go talk to investors and they want to know what the value of their company is. It's really understandable to be confused about valuations whenever trying to fundraise for your company. Valuations are really kind of a confusing thing. I mean, if you have an idea or if you're super early on, you don't have any revenue perhaps, how are you going to determine the value of your company? It's a really complicated and hard thing to value, so people tend to get hung up on this and it becomes like a really big headache for them whenever it comes time to fundraising. It's a really nuanced thing determining a valuation for a company, especially whenever you're really early on. It's something that confuses a lot of people, so we wanted to make a video that talks specifically about fundraising and setting a valuation for fundraising, specifically for whenever you're really early, you don't have a lot of traction, you don't have a lot of revenue, and it gives you an idea of how to navigate that playing field as a founder. As always, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the thumbs up button on the video, really helps the channel grow, but we're gonna go ahead and dive into this one right away. So first of all, it's worth noting that valuations for a startup, whenever you're really early, are incredibly nebulous. What a lot of founders will do is they will come up with some sort of an inventory of the assets that the company owns and try to use that as a method for defending a valuation or determining an valuation that they can use to pitch investors. So one of the things I've seen people do is take inventory of their time. They'll say, hey, I've spent 150 hours on this startup thus far. My time is worth $150 an hour. So that helps me determine a value of the company. And this kind of makes sense as a founder or as somebody that's not really familiar with the process. What you're trying to do is you're trying to validate the value of a company by using really the only thing that a company has at this point, which is this time that's been spent on the company, perhaps if you don't have any assets that you can show to actually assign value to. Or they may try to assign value to those assets by using that time as a defense. But what this actually ends up doing in practice is it causes investors and you to focus on things that you really shouldn't be focusing on, and it really opens up a point of potential contention and debate on the value of the assets. It's really not what you should be focusing on. It kind of opens up a can of worms to you as a founder. At the end of the day, whenever you're talking about a valuation for a really early stage company, what you're really trying to determine is how much of the company will an investor own should he or she choose to invest in your company. And this is really more of a negotiation than it is trying to actually assign a value to your company. I mean, yes, that is what you are trying to do. You're trying to say my company is worth X, but at the end of the day, what you're really trying to do is say, if you invest X amount, you will get X% of the company. The investors are likely going to try to argue for a lower valuation, which means that they get a larger percentage of the company. You, on the other hand, are probably going to try to get a higher valuation so that you can give up less percentage of the company to the investors. What you should be doing whenever you're communicating to investors, especially whenever you're really early on in early conversations, is not focusing on valuation at all. You should be instead communicating the vision of the company, communicating the growth of the company, the potential of the company, and where you think the company can grow, and focusing all of the time and attention on the future of the company, because right now we're talking about really early stage companies, so the company doesn't really have a whole lot of assets. It doesn't have a lot of revenue, so the company today might not be super interesting, but the future of the company might be something that's really interesting. So you really want to focus on the future of the company, the potential of the company, and how you're going to be growing the company and getting it to the highest value that you possibly can as a founder. What this does is it takes away from the value of the company today and focuses on the value of the company in the future, which is really what you guys should be caring about anyway, because really early companies don't have a ton of value. Whenever we raised money for Forecaster, we really just had a very small team, just me and my co-founder Steven, and an idea. So whenever we raised money, we had to defend a valuation that you could argue was really high given where we were, because we basically didn't have anything. We really just had a team and an idea. So the assets the company owned were basically zero. But you can't raise money on a company that has zero value. It just doesn't make sense. If you raised any kind of money at all, even if you made the value close to zero, you'd be giving up basically the entire company right whenever you fundraise. I mean, if we had to give up 95, 97, 98% of the company because the company had zero value whenever we went out to fundraise, then there'd be no incentive for me and Steven to start the company at all. It would just be completely, the investors would own the entire company. So why would we even pursue the idea in the first place? What you're trying to do is you want to strike a balance. You want to strike a deal that is fair for the founders and that's fair for the investors. It gives the investors enough upside to where if you can achieve that huge vision for the company that you're pitching, that they will make a ton of money, but that you will retain enough of the company as the founder to achieve wealth for yourself. You also have to think about subsequent funding rounds. Most companies that are venture-backed don't just raise once, they'll raise multiple times. So you will be diluted in the first round, then the second round, third round, so on and so forth. So you want to make sure that you hold enough equity as a founder to protect yourself for not only this round, but the future rounds as well. Again, it's entirely a negotiation. You want to use your vision of the company as a way to communicate the value of the company and use that to help raise money for the company today. In a friends and family round, giving up anywhere between 15 and 25% is pretty reasonable because it gives the investors plenty of upside. They own a decent chunk of the company, but the founders still own a huge chunk of the company as well, which allows them to continue to fundraise and get further diluted if they choose to. And it also gives them enough incentive as founders to continue to chase down their dream and continue to build the company into what they envision the company to be in the future. Most really early stage companies that are really just idea stage, no revenue, will raise somewhere around that $1 to $3 million valuation range and give up somewhere between 15 and 25% of the company. Quick tips for navigating valuation around fundraising is not to focus on the valuation of the company in early conversations. This is a mistake that we see founders make all the time. Investors jump right into the valuation of the company and say, what are you valuing the company at? How much can I get if I were to invest in the company? What percentage of the company can I own? Should I invest? And that's really not something that you should be focusing on in early conversations. It really doesn't even make sense for you as a founder or for the investor to be focusing on that, because at that point, they don't even know if they like the company. They don't even know if they believe in the vision. They don't know if you can achieve success for the company as a founder, which at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what the valuation is today. If you can't grow the company and achieve a big exit, then the investment's basically worthless for the founders and for the investors anyway. So step one is communicating that value, getting them bought into the vision, getting them to understand the growth plans of the company and how you're going to grow it into that $100 million, $200 million, $1 billion company and get them a really solid exit. And then once you've gotten them bought into that vision, then step two is negotiating a valuation that's fair for you as a founder and fair for them as an investor. It's always good to have leverage in these conversations. We suggest usually getting a decent chunk of soft commitments to your round before you even entertain valuation conversations. If somebody asks you what the value of the company is and you don't know yet, or you haven't set the valuation yet, it's perfectly fine to just say, we're still figuring that out. Right now, we just want to talk about the vision of the company and see if you would be interested in investing regardless of valuation. Then come back and talk about valuation later on whenever you've got plenty of soft commitments and you have a lot of leverage in the round. At that point, you have more bargaining power as a founder to set the valuation of the company, or at least to argue a valuation that's more favorable to you as a founder. Anyway, I hope that this video was really helpful for you guys. As always, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button. It really helps the channel grow, and we really look forward to seeing you guys again next week for a new video.